Welcome back, everyone. I want to talk about OnX Backcountry navigation on your phone, something I never thought I would use. Let's go. Okay, excited to talk about this. A couple of caveats. The first, I am not a fan of navigation devices on our phones for a lot of reasons, and I've talked about this a bunch of times. I would much rather people use handheld GPSs, even though the more I use my handheld GPS, hang on, I am frustrated by how slow the screen redraws and the user interface. So I am fading away from this. I love the maps on it, but as a paddler, I'm fading away from this. It's also big and heavy compared to my phone, and I'm carrying my phone anyway. The problem with, in my opinion, using your phone for navigation is that they are definitely, this is way more fragile than this is. There's no way around that. I also want to make sure that if the poo hits the fan, my phone is fully charged. So in general, when I'm paddling, when I'm hiking, my phone is powered off and is in another case, in a dry bag or in something else, in a backpack or in a dry bag in my boat. So I like to protect my phone. It makes it easier in terms of battery management. I'm not like, oh, I got to charge my phone. I got to charge my phone. When I'm in the backcountry, I don't want to deal with my phone. I don't want messages. I don't want phone calls. I don't want emails. I don't want any of that. That's why I go to the backcountry. But for this trip that I just did in New Hampshire, I needed to use it. And the reason I needed to use it was I couldn't find good maps of the route I was doing. I did finally find a map, but it didn't have great detail, and it was problematic. So I had a paper map with me that I never used, and instead I relied on my phone, which I use throughout the day. Now, the other thing I should point out is if you look right over here, on my wall, I have a chart from a trip that I'm been planning, haven't had a chance to do. It's been up there for a while. It works as like inspiration. It's like, don't forget about this one. You want to do this one, right? And up here, you can't see it ever because we never look that way in my office, is a world map. Inspiration. I love maps. I love charts. I love working with maps and charts. It's just a great thing. And yeah, a dying breed in that I really, really enjoy working with paper maps. I feel like it gives you an overview of what you're doing. It's able, like I'm a visual thinker, so it's easier for me to take in the whole thing. I really enjoy that. So I hesitated switching to a device, an app, in order to do this hike. In the past, I've used AllTrails. In all honesty, I got it when I worked for REI, when AllTrails was brand new. They offered a subscription to REI employees for free for a year. And so I did it, and I was teaching navigation for REI at the time, so it made perfect sense. They never canceled my subscription, and I used it for free for about 8 years. They finally caught on and sent me a bill. So I didn't pay for it, and I haven't had a navigation app for quite some time until this year when I got this. I need to stress, OnX did not give this to me for free. I bought it for, I think it was $38 for the year. I'll put that info right here. I'll figure out what I paid for it and put it there. It was on sale. I think it was like $38 or something like that for the year. I was like, that's not that expensive. In general, I don't like subscriptions. They really piss me off. But for this, I bought it and I did it. So I've got it for a year. I will probably not renew it because I don't know that I need it. But yeah, in general, I don't like subscriptions. I did bite the bullet this time and pick one up. The other sort of caveat I should give here is I've been teaching navigation for a really long time. As I mentioned, I really like maps and charts. It's something I really enjoy teaching. I've been teaching navigation longer than I've been teaching kayaking. It's just a lot of fun. And it's something that I have not been able to teach in a while because people don't want it. And the reason that people don't want it is it's super easy just to pick up their phone and use that. There are issues with that, which I've talked about in videos, where you're not building a map in your head if you're not really navigating, because the device is telling you exactly where you are. You don't have to think about it. And then my concern is that the device dies, or the battery dies, or or you break your phone or whatever, and then you have no idea where you are, right? So that's sort of the realm I live in. That is not to say that I came into this with bad intentions. Like, I didn't come into this wanting to dislike this. I was hoping that it would be useful and I would like it. I got OnX this time over All Trails on a recommendation from two people I was hiking with, which brings up another point. Dan Becker calls this product OnX. I think of it as on X, like you're standing on X. That's where you are. I don't know which is right. Dan, who has a long-running sort of deal and interaction with this company, OnX or OnX, he's probably right, because he probably deals with them directly. I don't. I'm going to call it OnX because I think that's what makes sense. I don't think OnX makes a whole lot of sense. Or maybe he's got a weird accent that I never noticed, and that's why it's like that. In any case, I bit the bullet. I paid my money. I downloaded the app. The first thing I want to say is that I'm an Apple user. I don't think it'll vary much if you are a PC user or an Android user. I had sort of seamless interaction between phone and laptop and iPad, and it worked beautifully in that sense. I will also add one more caveat. This is not the realm that I make videos in. I am not a tech reviewer. I'm going to give you my experience with this, but take it with a grain of salt. I'm a paper map navigator, sort of forced into this realm. I just want you to know sort of what my experience was like. So I'm going to open it up real quick here on my computer. And for this, I'm going to use the web version. I'm just going to log in real quick. So there's hunt, off-road, backcountry, fish versions of this. I did backcountry, which makes sense. I'm a little upset that there is no paddle, water, something like that. So the biggest thing that I did with this app was that I built out the route for the Presidential Traverse. So you can search Presidential Traverse and it'll show you the whole thing, but I wanted to break it out into legs, into sections, so that I could have it sort of in small chunks. And so I went onto the software and found the Presidential Traverse, and then decided to create my own route. And this gave me the ability to give them names and to give them, like, I did them each in different colors, and it made the whole process a lot more manageable. I was able to do this without too much trouble. I never read directions. I just sort of fumbled my way through it, and it was pretty easy. And in general, I was very happy with the process. To build a route, you just sort of trace where you want to go, and it automatically flows to the nearest trail. And then it gives you, for that section, it gives you distance, it gives you elevation gain or loss, as the case may be. I thought it was really intuitive and really easy. I really enjoyed working with it. I could link them all together or view them individually. It worked really fluidly in the sort of pre-trip planning phase, which again is something I'm like super comfortable with. I did all the things that I would do on a paper map. I did it digitally. Like, I would normally trace out options and measure the distances and know them. What I would do in this situation, which you can't see it because it's all in pencil, there's various routes back there on that, and I've got the distances and the compass headings. I don't have compass headings here, but I don't really need compass headings when I'm hiking. They're nice to have when paddling. But in general, I found this super easy to use. There was one thing that I wanted to do that I couldn't figure out how to do, which was I wanted to print each of the legs on waterproof paper. And I could print it, but I couldn't really control what it looked like, and it was putting a box with the description of the leg over the print. That never really worked for me. That was the biggest issue that I had, and it was pretty minor. And I wanted to do that because it's what I've done in the past with paddling routes. And so then I would have just pulled out whatever leg I was working on and just have that in front of me. Instead, I did it on my phone, which was fine. My phone's battery was great. I did have the ability to charge my phone if I needed to in the backcountry, but I never had to. And I was listening to music while I was hiking the entire day. Also, music or podcasts. I never ran into battery trouble, and I was using it all the time. I downloaded the maps, which was really nice. I didn't know if I was going to have cell service. I did, in fact, have cell service, so I didn't need to download them. But I downloaded the maps and all of the data and all of the information onto my phone, so I had it. All of this was pretty fluid. All of this was pretty easy. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty sold. It worked really well. It was totally worth the $40 or whatever I paid for it. And every time I sort of thought of, you know what, this would be cool to know when I was in prep, I could just pull up whatever device I was on, be it my iPad, my laptop, or my phone, and then sort of figure that out. As an old guy, I did find it a little bit easier just to work on the bigger screen of my laptop or my iPad. But when I was hiking, the phone was my go-to. It was super easy for me to see where I was on the trail and what was coming and things like that. The one problem that I had again, there might be a way to do this and I couldn't figure it out, and I will probably never need this feature again, so save yourself the time. You don't need to tell me how to do this in the comments. But as I got to the point where my knee was acting up and I was like, okay, I'm not going to make this whole thing, I've decided the prudent thing is to start descending. Weather is also deteriorating. Let's find some options for getting out. I wanted to be able to tap a spot on the map and tell me how far away it was. It's like a trail junction, and it couldn't do that. It would make a mark on the map, or it would highlight the route that was already there, but I couldn't actually get it to say, this point is 2 miles from you, right, or whatever. That would have been really nice. I'm sure you can do it, and I'm sure I just missed how to do it. I was also pretty tired, and so that could have been part of it as well. But in terms of me like figuring out I was able to adapt my route once I was having trouble and figure out my best options for getting down. It worked flawlessly. So the two problems I had were that I couldn't get it to say, oh, you're this far from a point that's not on your route, and I couldn't print. I could print, but I couldn't get the prints to look like I wanted them to look. In general, those two are relatively minor things. Now, in the past, I've printed from all trails, and it was a relatively easy, relatively straightforward thing, so there's probably just something I'm missing, but that was really the only problem I had. I'd also be willing to bet most users are not printing anything from this software. I would like to see a water version of this, right? That would eliminate this guy right here. If I could get the equivalent of Navionics or Blue Chart G3 charts on this software, oh my God, that would be incredible. And that would get me probably using my phone or a dedicated iPad mini with GPS in a chart case. That's my dream. And now you're going to say, that sounds a lot like Map Tattoo, which you tested last year and weren't thrilled with, which is not really true. I thought that was a great product. I thought the software needed some help. An interesting thing happened with Map Tattoo. If you haven't seen that review, I'll put that up here. Map Tattoo reached out to me at the end of May and said, hey, we've made a lot of changes. Do you want to test this thing out again? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was just about to leave town for a month to go back up to Maine. And I said, you can send it to me. I'm going out of town, but my son is at my house and he'll receive the package. And as soon as I get it, I'll spend some time with it. I won't rush this time like I had to rush last time because of a whole issue. I'll take my time with it. We'll give it a really good review. Never heard from them again. They never sent it. They never emailed me. Yeah, so I don't know what happened there. I guess they decided they didn't want to send it to me, or they forgot about me, or I slipped through the cracks or whatever. But yeah, right now, having used the software on my phone, I felt like the software was a better experience. I was hiking. I wasn't paddling. It might be different. But I felt like the OnX software was a bit more fluid and sort of easier to work with, even with that one problem. That said, I would still give Map Tattoo a shot. It's also a very different price point. $800 for the Map Tattoo versus my phone, which I've already got, and $40 a year. As much as I hate a subscription, that's a lot cheaper. The Map Tattoo device itself is beautifully made, is waterproof. I would have to deal with cases for whatever I was putting it in. There's a lot of factors, but that is still a big price point issue. So at this point, I preferred the experience of OnX over Map Tattoo as a paddler, but that's mainly based on software. So that might change. One last thing I want to add is that I did use OnX when I was training. I used it both locally and recorded data with my watch and with my phone with the OnX software. And an interesting thing, there was a fairly sizable, like almost a mile difference in measured distance. My watch was showing less distance hiked than OnX was, and I think that that's because even though my watch is pretty old, it's using multiple satellite sources for location. It's using both the US GPS as well as GLONASS, and so I suspect that my watch is more accurate than my phone is, but it did make me wonder if the distances that I was figuring out based on OnX's software were accurate, because they were actually different. The measurements were different than I found on paper when I did my original prep and what I found when I was actually hiking. So for example, it's not a huge difference, but OnX said that it was 3.6 miles from the trailhead to the Madison Hut. And in reality, based on the signs and my watch, it was actually 3.8 miles. So it's not as accurate as my watch, but that's just something to be aware of. We did also use it while hiking in Maine, and it made it super easy to be like, oh, what trails are nearby? And we could just sort of figure that out and then go to the trailhead. It was super nice in terms of just finding a trail, like, hey, it's Tuesday and I'm in this town and I have no idea what trails are here. It gave us the ability to see what trails were there and what the trail was like and distances and all that. In that sense, that worked beautifully, and we really appreciated that. Okay, those are my thoughts on OnX. I would give it a rave review. I would think if you're debating what to do, I think it's a great option. I really do. I really enjoyed working with it. I'll continue to work with it. I'm not even sure what trip I'll use it for next, as I don't have a hiking trip planned. I'm going to do a couple biking trips. I might try and incorporate it into that, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. So that's another sort of limitation, is that it works great for hiking, which is their primary audience. I do a lot of different things between paddling and hiking and cycling and road trips, right? I toyed with getting the off-road version, but my van doesn't really do off-road, so it wouldn't really, like, I'm moving through a bunch of realms and none of them really match with this product. But for this use, for hiking, for backpacking, I think it's awesome. Make sure you can charge your phone. Make sure your phone is protected from bumps and bruises. I kept my phone in the pocket of my pack. It was super easy to get to. When I had a question, I could check where it was. When I was like, is this climb ever going to be over? I could pull it out. It was super quick. It was super easy. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on OnX. I think it's a great product, and I would recommend it. I think it works really well. If they would come out with a sea kayaking version, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. All right, that's all I've got. If you have questions or experiences or comments based on this, head down to the comments down below. My books, my gear lists, the Guides Way download is on Ko-fi. All that stuff is on Ko-fi. Head over there. There are links down below. Make sure you hit subscribe. I need to hit 10,000 by the end of the year to make my goal. Help me out with that. Otherwise, I'll see you outside.